Hello, how are you today? I'm Sacred Para, and I am here with an IG Live for our series topic of storyline content creation. And I'm so excited because today, I am having, an awesome guest. And there she is. I'm about to have her join on in Daily Adventures of Ash Harbor. So please hold one moment while I join her in. There you are. Let's see if it goes through. So I hope you guys are having an awesome Friday. Hello! How are you? How are you? It's so good seeing you. We have both been like really excited about today. How's your day going?
So excited to get on with you. It's
Me
going
too.
great.
Good. So, of course, we're going to be talking about Gloria is so excited she's falling over. We're going to be talking about storyline content creation. And I'm really excited about being able to do this with you because I've been following your storyline for quite some time. And as you can tell from our last live, we had a conversation about who's this mystery person. So, I mean, you've still got us on our toes as to who this mystery person is in Shelby's apartment. You guys haven't checked out her storyline. It is so worth doing. You've got mystery, you've got action, you've got the whole love biker gangs. That's the storyline for me. So I'm really excited about being able to have this live and just being able to pick your brain for a few moments, if you don't mind. So let me go ahead and grab my paper. I like having paper and notes because I'm actually in this whole process also learning as well as those who are joining in. So if you ever have any questions after we do a live, you can DM me, Sacred Para. You can DM Mandy, which is Daily Adventures of Ash Harbor. You can DM her any questions that you have pertain to storyline creation or that pertain to her Etsy shop, because you also have an Etsy shop. She does such awesome, and I've been like neglecting on getting another knitted hat. I've just like been so wrapped up, but it's like on my list. I'm talking about every night. I'm like, I gotta go and I gotta support because also I need more hats for my dogs because she does such a great job with the beanies. And then you've got knitted tops or crochet tops. You've got crochet purses, reasonably priced, really awesome. So check out her Etsy. Can you put your Etsy, or can you say your Etsy's name?
Yeah, I can. It's Mandy's Doll Couture, and I can actually type it in here in the bottom so that people can see, because it's spelled obviously different than most people spell it. So
you look awesome.
Yeah, it's going really good. I was closed for a little bit because I was really inundated with orders, but I'm back up and running again, and orders are flowing through again.
Good. Well, I'm gonna be one of those orders. I believe she just put it on there.
I did.
Yes.
It's right above.
It's right above. Because they said, what is your Etsy? Yeah, it's written on there. So you may have to scroll and then you'll see it.
Yep. And if anybody doesn't catch it, they can message me afterwards. That's fine.
Awesome.
And I do have an Instagram for it as well. So it's the same thing. It's Mandy's Doll Couture.
Yes. So definitely check out her Etsy. You will not regret it. Everything holds up great as far as quality and just really looks good in photographs. So let's get down to it. What is your background as a writer? Because part of this series is to encourage people to understand that no matter if you've written before, if this is your first time having an interest in doing storyline, you can do it. Really just following the whole Bob Ross model. Anyone can paint. Well, anyone can write. I've written for a long time since my childhood, and then I went into school for writing. And as I've said in previous lives, I ended up meeting my husband, and we ended up, getting married, getting pregnant. From that time, I'm like on baby number 10, right? literally. So I didn't end up taking my pauses in between grad school. But one of the things that I've learned is you don't have to necessarily go into majoring for writing to be able to do this. So if you want to write books with it, if you want to do the storyline content creation on IG with your dolls, you don't have to have a degree to do this. If it's something that you do have a degree, yay, but it's not mandatory. So I wanted to know with you, what is your background as a writer?
I have always enjoyed writing. I enjoyed it as a little girl. I used to write a lot. I used to write poetry,
Yes.
and I actually had a poem published when I was a senior in high school. And that was where it started with the whole writing. But then, I got out of high school, I didn't write anymore. And I'm an avid reader. I read every night, at least for 5 minutes at least. If I have 5 minutes, I give myself 5 minutes. And so reading is a big thing to me. And when I got back into reading after I had my daughter, that love of writing came back to me. And of course, then I got into the doll stuff, and I was taking pictures of them, and then I started developing in my head these voices.
Yes.
So I was, I mean, maybe I need to put this into words, into stories. So I just started writing. And I had a friend at the time who encouraged me to write. And so I started writing on here and just writing little stories. And then, as you know, you don't have a lot of room to write.
That's true.
You just this small amount. And when you're writing, personally for me, I get in depth, and sometimes I'm just going away, and not a lot of people want to read, this much on a piece, on a picture. And so I actually started a blog, and I had a blog where I stopped posting my stories on Instagram, and I had a weekly blog.
Okay.
And I enjoyed it. I loved it. But it got to the point where nobody was coming to it, because they wanted to just go to Instagram, be able to scroll through, hit the heart and read there. And then that was it. I would get a few people, and that was it. So, I said, well, I need to go back to writing on there. And I have no background in writing. I don't have a degree. I just love to write, and I love to tell a story. I get these characters in my mind, and sometimes I have these characters and they've been in my mind for a couple of years, and they are just, playing in my mind, and sometimes they drive me insane.
I understand.
To the point where I'm like, oh my God, like I've woken up in the middle of the night and I wrote something down. Actually, I've gone on my phone because I have notes, and I always have a book next to me. I can be crocheting here at my desk during the day, and I write things down. A song, just as, for example, I'm a big music person. So music really helps me when I'm writing. I can be listening to music and I'm like, that's it. And somehow that song can help me with a theme. It can help me with the way I'm going with like a story, or the way the character, like what the character is getting ready to do, anything, the way they feel about somebody.
Yes.
Yes,
it draws the mood.
Yeah. And I love it. I don't care if I have 1 like on my picture or 1,000 likes. I have to get these words out of my mind.
I understand.
I tell the story, and I do have a particular story that I had told on the blog I guess it's been about 2 years now. It was the story about Liv, Torin, and Jameson.
Okay.
And I did start transferring that because I did want to turn it into a book.
Okay.
And so I did start to transfer it into like a document so that I could turn it into a book. But it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. It's, it's expensive too.
Oh, yes. Yes, it really is. He's definitely saying that you get, but it's a healthy addiction. It is an addiction, but it is a healthy one, as far as purchasing all the different miniatures and their clothes and then fabrics, so you can make their clothes or do their crafts. It gets very time consuming. It gets very expensive, which would be one of the cons. But the pro of it is that you look at this finished product and it's, it's mesmerizing. It really does get your juices flowing. Then, it encourages other people to be creative. It's literally therapy for us. If you're having a good day or you're having a bad day, it just feels good to be able to connect with something that, it feels like a form of catharsis. You're releasing whatever feelings that you have into this inanimate object and giving it a personality, giving it a voice, and it feels good. So I believe it's a healthy habit to have. A healthy addiction is far worse things out there. So
I know. I have so much. It's unreal when I look in here. I mean, I have an entire room dedicated to them.
I've seen your room. I'm like, they're so spoiled. They are so spoiled.
My daughter has recently moved on. She's no longer really into Barbies. So I have took her collection over, and I took all her over and shoes and different things. And so I'm trying to put all her stuff into my stuff, and it's a lot. It's a lot. And I'm like trying to find places for things. And I've been working on that all week. So I take like a little time each day to put like a bag that she gave me of stuff and put it away, and just, it's a lot.
It is. But I remember the IG that you did about that. And I was like, man, that has to feel so good. The whole 360. You gave her the dolls and now they come back and now you get to really, I have 3 girls out of our 10, our soon to be 10, and they can be very rough with their Barbies. And at the same time, they can also be very gentle. So whenever they are being rough, it's kind of like, man, I can't wait to be able to get that. Give her a little bit of extra love, brush her hair the right way and stuff. So I do understand. I do. But in the same hand, because I'm sure they're watching this, they are also very gentle with their dogs, too. They also take care of them. But you said a lot of nuggets in what you just said about the importance of being able to have your journal next to you, even while you sleep, and near your craft table, so that when you do get an idea, you're able to write it down right then and have it in a secure spot versus just putting it on a napkin like I've done, or an envelope, and then you lose it and you lost that whole idea or concept or whatever dialogue that you wanted to put into your storyline.
Yeah. So I've been in the car and just driving, and I'm like, oh, and I grab my phone and I go to the notes section and I start, and there's times I've done that numerous times.
Yes.
Numerous times. It comes to me. It comes to you, you start thinking. I'm always thinking in a 1/6 scale mind anyway. My mind is always there. So, I mean, it's always flowing, and so it's not unusual for me to be thinking that way.
And you're letting your dolls have their own voice. And one of the examples that comes to my mind is the movie, what is it? The Man Who Invented Christmas. So it's a movie about how the invention of the Christmas carol came about, and how he literally would hear the voices of the characters, and it became so overwhelming to the point where they were like telling him, write. They wanted him to write right then, and he was going through a writer's block, but in the same hand, he knew what he was supposed to be writing, but it was bringing up images from his childhood that he really hadn't dealt with. So I think that's like one of the other issues, and that's why we take therapy, that, when you're writing, it can bring up stuff that you haven't dealt with, and he hadn't dealt with those things, and so he didn't want to pour into the writing process right then. And then eventually, of course, he did, and we have the different versions of A Christmas Carol each year. So it's good that he did. I think it's Charles Dickinson, but I could be wrong. But nonetheless, I like that you do give each one of your characters a different voice. So David is not the same character as Rat, and Shelby is not the same character as Brooke. So like I like that dynamic, and you do want to give each one of your characters a voice. And even if they do grimy stuff, that may not be what you would do, you're letting them be who they are as a character. So that's one of the things that I really do admire with how you do your storyline, is that each one of your characters are different. You know, when you look at, what's his name? Rock's brother.
Rock's brother, it's Benjamin.
So wait, Benjamin is with May, right? So so it's Rock. That's who I'm thinking of. It's Rock. And just like, well, he and his twin are different. You know, they're different in their personality. You know, they both had their issues with women, but nonetheless, their personalities is very different. And who you've made Charlie to be is different than the other females, because she has that more nurturing side and that more, you know, she's willing to stay through the thick and the thin, and she really wears her emotions on her sleeve. Whereas, you know, like if Shelby is more like hardcore, you know, and this whole situation that's going on right now has been breaking her down. But, you know, you don't really see that with the other characters. So I really do believe that that's great that you do let each one have a voice. Edna Thompson, that's actually my aunt. Hello. Does any of your dolls represent you? That's what her question is. Do any of your dolls represent you?
Well, you know, a little bit of, well, I like to say I bring, I guess, a little bit of maybe my own life a little bit throughout the story, maybe things that I've experienced or I've gone through, or I've encountered maybe. Nobody particular really is me, but I do have a character that is me, but me in a different form. Me that is not, doesn't have a child, doesn't have a life, is just single and free, and just, you know, doesn't have anything, you know, just works and travels and stuff like that. But she's not made an appearance yet. I'm working on her. She's actually a character coming.
Okay, now I know you do have one character, and she wears glasses, and she'll give us like a recap of what's going on. And she only pops up every once in a while.
That was my mini-me, but I actually have a new mini-me. I do, and she's actually here with us tonight.
What? So if you are here right now, you guys are getting a wonderful sneak peek and a debut of your new mini-me.
And this is, of course, my name. I go by Mandy, but my real name is Amanda.
Okay.
So this is Amanda.
Oh wow! Hello. Oh my goodness! And you guys are both wearing the same. I love it. You're both wearing the same top. That is so awesome. Okay. I like her. I like her.
She is so she's you know, she is a part of Ash Harbor. She lives in Ash Harbor. But she's quiet. She's in the background. She's working, and you know, she hasn't come up yet. She really hasn't, you know, she hasn't been in the stories yet because I'm trying to work on other things. So, but she's coming. She'll be around soon.
Okay. I like that. I like that. What is your personal interest with the doll community? Like, what made you go ahead and decide to write storylines in the doll community?
What made me start writing the storylines?
With this.
Well, honestly, I found all these, you know, I found all these accounts, and I was like really mesmerized. And that's kind of what got me into it, you know, is all these accounts. They were amazing. And I was like, wow, you know, if they can do it, I could do it. And
yes.
Like you said, you know, and I, at first I didn't write anything. I did like pictures. I started off, I didn't know nothing about articulation, none of that. And then I started learning all the different things between articulation and what is made to move and all these different things. And it got to be a huge addiction.
It does.
And that's when I started writing. I just started getting these characters, and it seemed like every character I got, I was like, oh, okay, this is what I'm going to do with this person, and I'm going to write about this. And like I said, I'm an avid reader. I read romance novels. That's my thing. I love that. As you can probably tell. um, but a big thing I love is I had got into reading. I had read a series, and they were all a motorcycle group, and that's somehow where I started with this whole thing. And so I went from having like 4 or 5 guys to like 20 of them now.
Wow.
And yes, and so
And it
yeah,
happens
and
quick. It happens so quick.
it does. And I keep telling myself I really don't need no more dolls because I do have too many. I really do. I have too many. And I feel like every time I would get a new one, I'd have another storyline. And so that doll that I had just got previous to that, they would take the back burner. And I felt bad. Like I was like, there's so many stories that I have yet to tell because so many people are taking the back burner for
I
all these
understand
other
that.
ones.
I do. I do.
So,
Like,
but yeah, that's the reason I started. That's the reason why I started these stories is because um, I love to write. I love to tell my story. I want to get it out and I want other people to see it and to read it. And I enjoy it. It gives me a lot of comfort to write and to the whole story out, you know, and my favorite thing is, especially like when I've posted and it gets people excited and riled up, they'll get on and they'll start, you know, whether they like the character or they don't like the character. And I love people's comments. I mean, that's the best part is I will laugh at their comments
yes.
because people, they just go crazy. They get so upset or they're sad. I had, lady tell me the other day that one of the pictures that I posted had her bawling,
Oh,
and
wow.
but it was in a good way, and that made me feel good. You know, she said she was moved to tears at how I wrote it and what I had wrote. So that made me feel really good. That made me feel really good.
I,
I've had that a couple of times, and so you know when you've really drawn your audience in when you
I
get
believe
that.
that the feedback helps out so much.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
previously to, or I should say prior to writing the storylines on Dowstagram, I have some books that I published, and I'm actually still in the midst of publishing some books. I will complete them. Life just kind of happens, and you just don't really get it done as quick as you want to. But I have some books
No.
as an indie author, and I used to go to book fairs and have my book signings, and I enjoyed it. But it's not really the same kind of feedback, or at least not the instant feedback that you get like on Instagram. Because on
Yeah.
Instagram, it's just immediate. You know, you get, you know, it's not so much it's just like the likes, it's the comments, you know, and then you're like, I don't care if you get one comment or 10 comments or 100, whatever amount of comments that you get, it's like encouragement and motivation to post something else
Oh,
because
absolutely.
you're actually, you know, understanding that, hey, the story's, you know, relating to someone and I'm getting it out of me and it's helping someone else out, or you know, they're just being, even if they're just being entertained by it. Whereas
Oh
when
yeah.
you write the book, you don't always get the same, you know, you don't really, sometimes you may not hear anything. I don't, I have books on Amazon and I know that people purchase them, they purchase them directly, but you know, I may not have reviews under it. So I don't know how they felt about it. And I'm not writing so much for someone to read it because you want to write what's true to you. If you sit there and you write off of, I wonder if they're going to like this or if they'll like that, you won't write at all. So it's not so much that, oh, I'm writing this to be approved, but I would like to know if it resonated with you. How did it, you know, how did you feel when you read it? I have had some book signs, people are like, oh, I really did enjoy it, and that feels good, but you have to wait till the next book signing to find out what someone felt. Whereas right here on Instagram, if you choose to do storylines or if you do storylines, you get that immediate feedback in it, and then you get to interact. That's like the love of the internet. You get to interact and comment back, or you guys DM each other. And so that's always the
Yeah.
fun part of it as well.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, you're not going to write something that everybody's going to love. It's just a proven fact. I mean, what you might feel, somebody else might look at it as not, you know, not appealing. And I've had many people say, "Oh, I lost followers because of what I wrote." And I'm like, well, did you like what you wrote? And they're like, well, yeah. And I'm like, well, then that's all that matters.
Yes.
You're in at the end of the day, when you think about it, you are the person that you're supposed to be appealing to.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, you can appeal to your audience, but you are appealing to yourself. I mean, if they don't like it, then they don't have to scroll, and they don't have to like, and they don't have to like your picture.
That's
You know,
true.
that's how I look at it. I used to get like, oh, I need to have this amount of followers and this and that. I don't even look at it now. Like, it's great if you have a lot of followers, but half of the followers that you have don't even see what you write, because if you have a lot of followers, most of the time they don't even see it. I mean, it's just the way the feed goes.
Yes. Yes.
And there's a lot of people that I have followed, and then all of a sudden I'm like, why am I not seeing their stuff? And it's because of the way the feed goes. And that I can't stand, because there's a lot of accounts out there that I love, and I'm like, well, where'd they go? You know?
I understand that. I understand that I think they call it the algorithms. Whenever that, I believe they just recently changed it up. So like every time whenever you get kind of the swing of it, they end up changing it up again. And so I've heard people say that affected their following, and affected people being able to see their account and see their page as well.
Yeah.
So that is kind of a downfall of writing on Instagram, but I would gather you have to kind of know where your direction is. And that was actually going to be one of my questions as far as doing the storyline. Are you doing the storyline and you actually already answered it, to get the story out there, or is it a matter of following and you already put it out there? It's really about the passion of writing. So I do agree. Now, do you believe that with writing storylines, if someone is saying, I want to grow my Instagram account, would you advise them to do storylines? Do you feel like that's an easy way to gain followers, or is it just quicker for them probably to just take photos of their dolls interacting throughout the day and doing, wearing different fashions and
I don't know, because there's so many different things. A lot of these fashion accounts, I do notice, get a lot of followers, because all they're posting is, maybe a doll in, the latest outfit or whatever. Maybe it's a handmade outfit from another country. And they don't have words to it, or if it's anything, it's minuscule. And so, I see where it could be a catch-22 situation. If you love to write, then yeah, give it a try. I mean, there's no right or wrong answer, honestly, truthfully. I think if you want to write and you love to write, you should write. If you love to just take pictures and like go to the park and take pictures,
yes,
or pictures in your backyard, or anywhere, or if you just have paper and you just put them up behind, with a background. I mean, just take pictures. That's how I started. I didn't know nothing about it, and I just started taking pictures, and then it was all from there. I mean, it just went from there, and I learned something new all the time, and
yes.
I have friends who do things, and we correspond back and forth, and we learn, and you learn different things. I learned about lighting. I still don't have that great of lighting, but I'm learning, and it's great. It's
Same here.
Endless.
Same here. I'm learning all the time. My husband does photography. He's broken down the whole thing to me as far as like photo being light, and the more light that you have, especially natural light, it really does, improve the quality of the picture. But it's a constant learning aspect, you're learning what elements to use, what not to use. And then it also depends on like the complexion of your dolls, what your dolls are wearing. That all goes into it, regardless if you're doing fashion, or like you said, if you're doing, pictures outside and different field trips with your dolls, or if you're doing it, with a storyline. All those things are a learning factor each and every day. And I mean, like when it comes to fashion, I imagine they have to stay up on the latest trends. They have to study and find out, you know, like what colors work and what's in for this season. So that's its own thing. And that's why I don't even comment, because I'm like, I don't know. My mom did fashion, and you know, she had her fashion shows and everything, and sewed for many, many years, had her own shop. But it's just really not my full on area. Like I would have to really dedicate myself to learning what's in and what's not, and so forth, and this designer and that designer. Right now I'm into the writing. That's really where I'm at. It doesn't mean that I won't go into fashion, but you know, I'm not going to limit myself, but that's just not something I can comment on. So I'm like, I know that they probably have their own pros and cons with growing their Instagram page. But I've always wondered, as far as with storylines, how do people feel as far as, you know, like where your motivation is? Is your motivation to grow your page with numbers, or is your motivation to get the story out? For me, it's always to get the story out. I believe in the very beginning of me doing it, well, I can't say like the very, very beginning, because when I was doing it with my daughters, and I still do it with my daughters, just on a different level, because now my storyline has gotten more personal, as far as just like mommy having her time. So on that level, it's just like me being able to take the pictures that I need to. But at first, you know, we were doing it together, and they were, you know, like incorporating their storyline and so forth. And every once in a while, you know, they'll give me some information and we'll put it in there. But in the probably like the mid beginning, I was like, oh, I got to get my numbers up. I got to do this. I got to do that. And just like you, I'm now at the point where I'm like, no, it's really about getting the story out, having fun with it. You know, there's enough stressors in life where I just want to be able to enjoy what I'm doing, you know, so that's where I'm at with it as well. My question next is, do you find it easier to work with one or two characters, or to have multiple characters?
Wow, that's a that's a hard one because I have a lot of characters.
I think
So
I think your volume went down. I'm sorry, I got my pen in the way.
that's okay.
Okay.
Let's see. Can you hear me now?
It's a little low.
Okay. I think I might have to go out and come back in.
Okay.
Let me do that.
Okay. Okay, so you're gonna go out, and then you want me to call you back in? Okay. So I'm gonna call her back. Her volume got a little bit low. You guys are getting a whole lot of nuggets, as am I, which is gonna, of course, aid us as we continue on our wonderful series of being able to write storylines. She's coming right back in. Great. Now we can hear you. Okay.
For some reason, there was a phone call that came through, and if I get a phone call that comes through, it completely cuts my sound off.
That's okay. That's okay. You're fine.
Okay, so is it easier for me to work with one or two characters, or multiple?
Or multiple.
It depends. Sometimes it's easy with one or two, but I like working with a lot of characters because I like to bring in a lot of different personalities and a lot of different action to the story. If I have two characters, like say if I'm working on a scene and it's just two people, like Asher and Shelby, it is easier because you can concentrate on the two of them and what you want them to say, you know, what you really want to get out. When you have multiple people, you have multiple different personalities, like I said, you're trying to get out, and different things you want them to say. So that can get a little overwhelming to some people. So you might want to maybe keep it, you know, depending on how you feel, you might want to keep it a few people. But if you're, you know, if you're up for, you know, lots of people and you're okay with that, and more the merrier, you know. Sometimes I have a lot of characters in my stories at one time, and I haven't had that in a long time, but then sometimes I have just a couple, and I like I like just 2 or 3. It is nice. It's more intimate because then you can really hone in on their conversation.
I agree. Would you say, do you have kind of like your core set?
Yeah, I guess so. Give or take. I mean,
I thought your core set was with Rock and Charlie, but then I found out that Ash Harbor was named after Asher, and so I was like, well, maybe he's more of the core, and then everyone else kind of branches from him. So, or do you even subscribe to that? Like, do you just go with the flow?
I just kind of go with the flow. I mean, yes, Asher, yes, he is from Ash Harbor, and obviously, he obviously was named after Ash Harbor. But they kind of branch off of everybody, I guess you can say. Yeah, they all branch off of each other.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was wondering about that.
They're like, well, how do you pick a favorite? And I'm like, well, that's hard. That really gets hard. Because it does get hard. But I love Rock and Charlie. They are my favorite couple. But then again, I have other couples that are my favorite too. And so it is difficult. It's difficult. It depends. Everybody has, it's like a parent that has more than one child. You might have your favorite, but you obviously love them all the same. But they all have their own, personalities, their own quirks, why you love them. So that's kind of how it is, That's
we always tell our kids, if we do have so many, we're like, we love you. You're all our favorite, and then at the same time, you can all be our worst. Like, or we really try not to do any favorites with them, because I've seen so many times in families where it's like, this is your favorite kid, the golden kid, and that child is sneaky and doing all kinds of stuff, and they know they can do it. So we just keep our eyes on all of them. That's why I'm like, I try to make my doll time as least stressful as possible, because we do have to keep our eyes on all, because you just don't know which one, if they feel like they can get away with stuff, will do something. But in the same hand, they're all our favorites because of who they are and what they bring as far as their personality and their gifts and the love that they have. So I fully understand that. I do, because when it comes to my dolls and their doll line, I feel a little bit bad. Like you're saying, as far as like putting them on the back burner, I will often feel a little bad about Nita and Tony, because I started off with them. And I'm like, man, I really need to incorporate them back in more often, because they're kind of my core set. But as you can tell, I usually always have Gloria hanging out with me. So I feel so bad. Like, I gotta get Nita and Tony back in more, because it's not really fair to them. They started it. But Gloria and Raymond actually came from a story that I wrote in 8th grade. And it was a character, it was about a couple that were interracial, and it was during like the 60s, and they just gotten married, and then they had all these different racial tensions that were going on that was trying to separate them, and they were just wanting to be together and love each other. So that was 8th grade, and that's why you said that that you can sometimes hear these voices for years. Hi, Mom. I fully understand that, because that character, those two characters stayed with me throughout. And when I started, with the doll page, and then I had Nita and Tony, and I wanted to bring in these counselors that were going to help them with their marriage, it was like Gloria and Raymond. I need to go ahead and make them into something that was actual. So that's been fun to be able to do, to take some characters from a long time ago and make them actually physical. So that, that when you said it, I was like, I'm with you on that, sis. That's the same thing here. We do have a couple of questions. Okay. Someone had asked, and I wrote it down. How many dolls do you have? I don't even know if you could answer it, because you have dolls on
think
the
I can
front
answer
and back of your door.
because
And then I
as
remember
you
you
can
said,
see,
yeah, and then don't you have dolls inside the closet too?
I have dolls inside that closet, but I have that dolls on that wall or on that door. That is the main, um, that's where I keep all my girls. That's where all the girls are at on that one. And
Oh
then I
wow.
have on this door, which is the door that goes out into my house, is I got, dolls there. And then behind there on the other side is all the all my old dolls, like back from the 90s and stuff like that, that I just can't part with. I just can't part with.
Wow.
Yeah. And
All my 90 dolls, I miss them. They end up getting messed up in the attic, but yeah. And then you have dolls in your diorama area too?
yes, Asher and Shelby are up there, and I have some up in the coffee shop, and there's some over here in a couple of the scenes too. And Charlie and Rock are in their house, so yeah, we have them all over.
See, like my thing with my dolls, like I've said before, I had to kind of lock them up. So, because my kids, I want to make sure that mommy can always be happy with them.
Yes, yeah,
And one time I came in and one of their little braids had been cut, and I was like, I think something happened. And to keep myself from getting mad, I'm going to go ahead and we got a little lock box. And so we put them in the storage box. And then I've gotten more dolls because, like I've said before, my mom is a Barbie girl herself, but she really doesn't want to get a doll page herself. I don't know why. I think it's just like I'm an only child, so I think that she's living vicariously through me. She's on here. So. And my aunt is. But nonetheless, she will not get her own page. So she'll buy the dolls for me. And I've got all kinds of dolls that are in different places of the room. So like when we move, we're gonna get our own Barbie studio, and then I'll be able to just have them in one secure spot. But until then, like I said, so mommy's happy and not getting mad at them. Just lock them up. That's the best place for them. Yeah, because they get their little hands on stuff. They're curious. Kids are curious. That's just the bottom line. They are.
What's going on? They want to see everything.
They do. They do. And if it's something that brings mommy joy, they want to go ahead and be a part of that. That's just the bottom line. And if they destroy it, then it's like, you can get another one. You can get another one. Okay, let's see. Oh, I thought that was a question. So let me see here. Does anyone else have any questions? I'm trying to make sure I didn't miss anyone. I'm going through here. This would be the time if you have any questions for Daily Adventures of Ash Harbor, or even for myself, or if you have any questions about storyline content writing. Trying to make sure I went through everything. One other thing while we wait. What would you say is the pros and cons of writing storylines?
Well, I don't know, really. I don't know. That's a hard one. Well, the pros about it, it's rewarding. That, to me, I mean, that's a definite pro. Um, as far as the con, I don't really know how to go about that, to say that, really. With writing, I mean, con for me was just recently, probably I had writer's block, and that was my con, I guess I could say, because I don't like getting writer's block. I don't like to stop writing. But sometimes our minds get busy. We have our normal daily lives, and so outside of this, and so sometimes that stuff kind of messes with it. But sometimes you don't want to write, or something's happening in your life and you don't have the urge to write, and I've been there before. That's been a con you know, that I've had before. Let's see. Yeah, I guess the pros are just, for me, it's just getting the story out and writing. That's just, I just love it. I love it. I love to write. I love it. I get so excited. The other day when I started writing again, I could feel myself. I was like a kid in a candy shop. I was just so excited to get back to writing, and I could feel it flowing again. And I was just really, really happy.
And it does feel really good. It does. I'm in full agreement with your pros and with your cons, because if you are going through a whole lot, and it doesn't always have to be something traumatic. It's just a busy day, a stressful day. You're just tired. It's going to be harder to write. And you can have a storyline there, but just not really be able to communicate it as far as giving each character the voice to say it. But when you do get it out there, like I was able to put out a couple of posts today, and one of them even made me laugh, and I was like, you know, just being able to release it and hearing them in my mind, you know, like saying it and looking at the pictures. So I did. It felt very, very good as far as just getting it out. And, you know, you just have to kind of wait until it does happen, because sometimes if you try to push it, then it won't really come out in the voice of the character. So you want to do that.
If you push too much, sometimes it will make you kind of not want to write, or you might not even want to go into that whole story.
Yes.
And I've done that. If I've rushed something, or you know, like I said, I was very busy with my orders, and I didn't come in here at all and write, and it made me I was really sad, because it's something I absolutely love. And I kept telling my friends, you know, I can't wait to get back to writing. I cannot wait to get back to writing. I miss it. And I know that they probably got tired of hearing me say that, but I really did. And I had so many people, when are you going to write again? I missed your stories. And I love that. Obviously they really were waiting. They were invested in my stories, and that made me feel really good.
Yes. Now, are yours scripted? Do you write a script beforehand, or do you write as you're typing it? That's when you're writing.
I write as I type. I take my pictures, and a lot of times when I take my pictures, that's when the dialogue starts coming to me. I have a general idea of what's going to be said, but then more sometimes comes out as I'm typing, and sometimes it's 10 times more than I expected it, and feelings and everything. Sometimes it's just unreal. Sometimes what I wanted to say is complete opposite. And sometimes for a scene, I can take 50 to 75 pictures and maybe use 10. And I just, you know, I have to sit and look at the picture, and then I can be like, okay, this is what was said. You know, and sometimes I don't even say what I was going to say. But I always make sure, if I've written something down, I make sure that I go back to that, because especially if it was something that I really wanted to use in that part of the story, or if I know that, okay, I wrote down that I wanted her to be in the coffee shop and sitting at the table by the window, make sure that I do that, you know, because those little details are big to me.
I agree.
They are.
I agree. And I'm definitely the type that does the same thing. I take my pictures. I have a general idea of what's going to happen. And then when I'm posting, as I'm going to, you know, I edit the pictures and so forth. As I go to post it, that's really the time that I'm thinking, what pictures am I going to use? Now I'm at a point where I am discarding more pictures. At first I was almost wanting to post each picture I did, because each picture has value. But now I'm like, you know what? Let me be more discerning about what I'm going to put up here, how it really does relate to the storyline, so that I'm not putting up some pictures that don't really pertain to what I'm wanting to put out there. Or I recently took some pictures, and my arcade character was looking off. I still don't know how I did this when I was taking the pictures. Looking off somewhere else, and Gloria is staring right at her, and she's looking up, and I was like, how did I miss that? So I was like, I'm not going to do those pictures. It was hard because I was like, I took these pictures. I took them and I edited them. And I was like, I just can't do it.
Yes, yeah, and you're like, oh no, like, and sometimes you're like, why did I do that? You know?
Yeah. And so I was like, I can't even use these. You know, I could put them up there, but it's just going to look really awkward with her being right here and Gloria's looking at her, talking to her. Unless I'm saying, you know, she's just, you know, irritated with Gloria, but Gloria just got in town. So you're best friends. You couldn't get irritated that quick unless you're just a moody person. Yeah, so I'm like, you know, how's this identify with RK's personality? And I was like, I'm just going to have to just trash it. You know, those just won't be photos that I'll put up there. So learning, you know, I'm now in that process, like I said, learning how to say, okay, these go on and these are just going to, you know, be wasted. You know, they just won't see the light of day, not for right now. They're just being the bloopers reel. But that's very, very true. Being able to know what photos to use. And then what I hear you saying is leaving room for your characters to speak. I have nothing wrong with scripting. You know, everyone writes different. Some people may write with a script and it flows for them. For myself, I have to type mine as I go. You know, just like with the whole Valentine's thing, I had already had the mother, Mama Catherine, with her towel and so forth, that you know, all those pictures, I took those way in advance and just didn't get a chance to post them. And here comes Valentine's, and it was like, oh, perfect. I can use it for this holiday, which would even show even more so how Mama Catherine, you know, feels as far as her prominence, you know, in the relationship between Gloria and Raymond. So it worked out great. So I've learned, like, using holidays or using birthdays, those, you know, you can do birthday pictures and just have them say happy birthday. Like, I got to do birthday shoots right after we get off of here. But you can always do birthday shoots and just have it be, you know, a separate part of your timeline, or incorporate that birthday party into your timeline, especially if you're dealing with writer's block, or, you know, you don't really know where to go with your character. There could be some drama that took place at the birthday party, or they met someone at the birthday party, and it doesn't have to be from that other person's account. It could be from your, you know, out of your own collection. But, you know, hey, they met at this birthday party and now they're going to start this relationship, or, you know, they're figuring things out. But it helps, you know, whenever you use the holidays and use the special events that's on Dolpstagram and fit it into your timeline. I've seen, like with yours, I've seen with the wedding, like different wedding challenges and so forth, and that being on your timeline and you being able to interact with the other accounts, it works. And then it helps push your storyline along. And then you get a chance to see another character from Ash Harbor and them acting up and acting crazy and wild. So so it's always, you know, and it's fun, and it gives you another transition. Or, you know, it doesn't always have to be something fun. Like I said, it could be some drama that took place, but you weren't knowing what you were going to do with your characters until you use that birthday event or that holiday to move the storyline along. So always leave room, even if you script it, try to leave room for your character to speak.
That's right.
So we did get some questions.
Okay.
One question was, how many different accounts? Neza PT NYC. Neza Pretty, I do believe, NYC.
Well,
how many different accounts?
Okay, so I have this account, which is like, I just kind of like, this is the, I guess you could call it, I just post either inspirational things on here or just like a daily post, you know, something fun. I do my lives on here, you know, like when I'm unboxing something, things like that. So this is the daily adventures one. Then the Ash Harbor stories is where I post my stories, and I did that separately to keep it separated so that people could just go there to read if they want to just read the stories. And then I've got my Mandy's Doll Couture, which is my crowd, you know, my Etsy, where I do my crochet for the dolls. And my Etsy store is on the bio at the top, and so that you can click on it and then go right to the store. And I try to post on there, you know, pictures of items that are getting ready to ship to people, or if it's a new piece that's going in the store, things like that. So I've got three accounts.
3 accounts. Life and Times of Mini-Me said, not a question, but I love the stories, Mandy, and it's always fun to stay up to date with.
Oh, thank you. So
Dorothea, that's my mom. She said, how long have you been collecting your family of dolls?
Okay, well, let's see. My daughter and I started collecting, I guess, probably right before she started to in school. So she's in 5th grade now. So I guess, give or take, I think we've been collecting. Well, I've been collecting maybe about, give or take, like 7 years, maybe.
Wow. Okay.
But it is as a child, you know, I had dolls. And then, you know, once I grew up a little bit, you know, they went into a Rubbermaid container and they went up into the attic.
Yes.
And, you know, that was it. I didn't even know any of this all existed until I just one day, I don't even remember, I had just got on Instagram and I think I had typed in Barbie. We had just started playing Barbies, her and I together. She had gotten to the age. And we you know, we got him out, we're playing with him, and I typed it in or something, and then I found all this stuff. And at the time it wasn't like it is now, and it was unreal, like the things I found. And I'm like, oh, this is really cool. So, you know, I'd post little pictures here and there, but it wasn't, you know, nothing extravagant or anything. And then I don't know, somewhere down the line it just went from there. And it just took off from there. I did have another account at one time, but for some strange reason, because, you know, you get people that can be mean on here at times, you know, or just not, you know, somehow they just, I don't know, sometimes some people are not fair, and they had my account shut down. And so,
oh, wow.
Yeah, so my account got shut down. So my very like first picture that I ever had, I can't even go back and look at, and I wish, because I had pictures from all the way from the very, 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 very beginning. And so that really, really
hurt. Yeah.
Really hurt. But I do go back. I go back on my blogs, and I go back and I like to reread, and I look at the pictures that I have on there versus what I'm doing now, and I'm like, I really have come a long way. So it's nice. It's nice to see different, you know, to see your progress, you know, and that's like that with anything.
I like that you brought up reread, as far as being able to see your progress. That right there is so key. And then I find also with writing a storyline that it's always good to go back and look and see what characters that you may have said or how you may have spelled a certain name, especially like if it's a character you haven't used in a while. When I recently did the visual for the invisible character, you know, how you would use a invisible character, I had to go back. I remembered doing it, but I couldn't even remember what the young man's name was. So I was like, let me go back and find his name, and also find out when this was even done the very first time. So it was in like September, and I was able to remember that his name was Kenny, but I didn't remember it until I went back and reread it. And I also find too that when you go back and you reread it, it also kind of like helps you get into the personality of your character. So that if I'm writing on Hollywood, which is one of the characters, I know I just saw mom say that she likes Hollywood. So if I'm writing on Hollywood, her name is Isabel, but her nickname's Hollywood, I would actually need to probably go back in order to really capture the essence of her personality, because she's different from Frida, she's different than Gloria, she's different from Nita and the other characters. She has like this, you know, snotty personality. You know, she just has like a whole different air about her. She's a model. She's, you know, she does acting. She hasn't had any leading roles, but to her, it's like, you know, it's a really big thing. You know, I rub shoulders with Denzel. You know, that's just like her personality. That's her personality. So I have to capture that by going back to go, you know, and reading how she is so that I can write something new on her. So I'm so glad that you did say rereading, because the power of rereading will, of course, show you where you were at to where you're at now, get you in connection with your characters, also kind of like help you tie up any loose ends. Like if I mentioned that my character was going to have their son come in town, but it's like 30 posts later and you haven't seen him, or even, you know, there's no word on if he is coming in town ever, then I need to go back and reread that and go, oh, let me connect that in. You know, I had brought up this guy, Kenny, never did, although he's an invisible character, it would still be good to tie him in somehow. So
exactly.
Go back, find out what loose ends you have and clean it up.
That's right. And that's the same thing with Shelby's father. I've never pictured him. I never showed him. He was an invisible character. But a lot of people felt close because they were concerned, they were worried, they didn't know what was going on. And then when everything transpired, you know, they were hurt inside. They were very upset for Shelby, and but they felt close to that character, even though they had no idea what he looked like. But with an invisible character, you can create who you feel that they look like. They might have dark hair in your mind, or they might wear glasses or whatever, you know, because it's you can create it yourself.
You can, and then as we read it, we create what we think he looks like. So that's always like the fun thing about it, is that each person has their own interpretation of what and who Shelby's dad is, and you know, and now that we know that Wrath is her brother, it's like, well, does probably more like Wrath, or does he, you know, favor more Shelby, or you know, what does Shelby's mom look like? You know, so it does. It allows you to be more curious and also build up the imagination in your own mind as the reader and as the writer. And I'm just curious. I don't even want to talk about the whole Shelby thing because because I'm curious. I'm so curious now with this box and the angel wing necklace. Like I said, you need to check out our page if you haven't, because I'm just like, did he already know that this was going to happen? I mean, that's why I said I don't even want you to answer, because I love the suspense. I have to find out when, you know, as you post it. But I am very curious as to, like, how did he, you know, what made him send this box? You know, did he know that this was going to be coming to him? I'm curious to know how this all is going to take place, like the process of it. Like I said, I'm still trying to find out. Life and Daldom and I were talking about it last time. You were on here and we were just like, who is this person with the hoodie? Because if it is, I'm just going to put it out there. If it's Wrath, I'm like, that is just so horrible, because he was going through her clothes and her intimate clothes and taking it. So I'm like, I really am hoping. I'm hoping that it is not Wrath. I'm like, please let it be David, because David is so odd. But don't tell us.
Oh no, I'm not telling nobody. I'm not telling nobody. Nobody knows. And it's funny because so many people have wrote me and they're like, I think it's a woman. And then I get people that are like, I think it's a man. And then they're like, I think it's this one. I think it's that one. And I just die laughing because I just
unless you know how well how well you're writing it, as far as like keeping us on our toes, as far as who is this person? Because for a while there, I was just like, do not sleep in your apartment. I've been really glad that she's been staying over there at Actors, because we don't know who it is. And David is, and David may be perfectly fine. And that's like the thing about it. David could be perfectly fine, but he just has and that's because you gave him his own voice. So he just has like this very off tone where you don't really know if he's the good guy in a situation or if he's just like a creep in a situation. He just really has like a blank exterior about himself. Like, you know that he likes her, but he also has like stalker traits. So you just don't know. But I like that you gave them each a voice to where, you know, we're having this conversation. Like, who is it? Because they each have their own flaws and they each have their own quirks, where you just like, it could really be anyone. One person we know for sure is not, at least I don't think it's Asher, because he couldn't be in two places at once, because there's been times when this person's in there when Asher's with her. So we know it's not him. So I'm glad to know that. I don't want Asher to be a bad guy. I don't. So from what I can tell, it's like Asher. I'm so glad though. And this is, like the interesting thing about writing characters. How you were able to take Asher, for example, and have him from being this kind of like womanizing character. And I don't know if I want to say womanizing as much as like he was an empty. Okay, well, he was just, he was empty. And womanizing, and he was just bunking up with whoever, trying to keep it as nice and PG as possible. And then when he met Shelby, it turned on this emotion for him that he hadn't felt before, to where he was just like, I want to live differently. And this is before any number was exchanged or anything. So you see him begin to do this shift. So, and I've also noticed that, of course, with your Rock character, that he did this shift. So I think that's really interesting that you were able to do that, where you can't really peg the character. You're not going to, you couldn't really be like, oh, Asher's just a scum. Because Asher, needed something to, he needed to see someone that was different. And Shelby offered him something that was different. And then you just see him starting to turn, where he doesn't even seem the same. He's a 180. He doesn't even seem like the same character a few months ago.
I really, really love writing for him, and he talks a lot in my head, a lot. And when I get in here, especially like if I'm working around his stuff, I can hear him. I hear him literally. Like if he was real, he'd have a really dark, deep voice. Like that's how I know. For some people, it's strange, and I some people look at me like, okay, are you feeling all right? Because
No.
I mean, but I can hear them, and I have this conversation with two of my really good friends, and that write as well, and they know exactly what I'm talking about, because they've had characters that have driven them absolutely bonkers in their head, and so you hear that character.
You do.
You hear that character. I had one lady who she used to go to, I think it was in her neighborhood, obviously before COVID, and she would have, like, I think get-togethers or little ladies' nights out or something,
Okay.
or little wine parties or something. And I guess she was passing her phone around, and they were reading my story, and she told them about me, and they're like, "Are you sure this is a lady and not a man that's writing these stories?"
That is such, it sounds weird, but that is such a compliment. Like I said, I'm like writing a miss right now of writing, I think it's like 2 or 3 books. Like there's one that I'm like really, really excited about, because it's one of my first ever romance novels. And I always liked romance novels. My aunt, when I was young, had gave me a big box. Well, it's not like really, really big. It was like a nice size box of romance novels. And I was probably like 8 or 9. And my mom was like, you can't have them. So she took them and put them in our closet. And then one day I went in her closet and took it back. And I took it over to my best friend's house so I could read it. And then I tried to and she was a little bit older than me. I think she was like 3 years older than me. And I used to play Barbies at her house. And I mean, like, that was like my sister. Like, I would go over there every weekend, eat steak, potatoes, and salad drenched with ranch, and all the stuff I couldn't eat with my mom's. And and that was just my favorite buddy. But my favorite buddy would not give me back my romance novels. She refused to, and I was so hurt. I was so hurt because I really did want those. Like, I knew that I could just flip to like page 298 for like all the details and stuff, right? And she wouldn't let me have them back. So ever since that time, though, I always wanted to write romance novels. So what I'm writing on right now is like one of my first ever. And I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm gonna put it out there. But I completely understand where you're coming from when you say, are you sure this is a lady? Because my husband read it. He read a part of it, and he was just like, you did really good. It sounds like a man wrote it. And I was like, yes. Especially when it comes to the men speaking, I want to be able to tap into what this, very masculine, rugged, street mail would end up saying. So I was like, hey, that's a compliment. I'll take it. So it does. It feels good to be able to know that you're writing outside of yourself and really, once again, giving your character a voice. So
yes. I've been, and I've had numerous people. My mom follows my stories as well. She loves reading my stories, and she told me numerous times. She's like, "You nail the lady parts," but she's like, "You really, really nail the men parts." I'm like, "Really?" She's like, "You really, really do." And I guess, like I said, I'm an avid reader, and when I read, I guess I just try to soak in like their mannerisms and the way they talk and the way they act and stuff. And you know, a lot of my guys are, you know, the motorcycle group, and so, you know, yeah, Wrath. A lot of people have told me I don't like Wrath. I can't stand Wrath. You know, and I'm like, man, that's okay. That's all right. That there's nothing wrong with that. We're not gonna like every character, especially I've read books before, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't like this character, and I've had characters that I don't like, but you know, um I always just, for some reason, I hone in, and sometimes I can just really hear that voice, and then I'm like, wow, yeah, and it comes out. It's just like I don't even realize I'm doing it. But yeah, that lady had me done. She told me that. She's like, they were speechless. They're like, "Are you sure this is a lady writing this?"
let's see. We have a couple more comments. The Great Plastic Adventures one, hello. And actually, she has a birthday party going on. That's where I'll be taking my pictures today at. She said, I see where I messed up. Tried multiple stories in same account. And she said she's so sorry to hear what happened to your account. Would you say that that's a mess up if you had multiple stories in the same account?
No, I mean, I've done that. Not at the same time. Like I wouldn't be working on like the same stories at the same, like I wouldn't be working on 3 stories at the same time. I try to stick to sort of like one story, but maybe like branching off kind of. You know, you know, I've got the Shelby thing going on right now, but things eventually will move on. Other stories will start evolving. So that will help. That's how I've done it. I've just tried to move in. You know, we had the stuff with Rock and with Charlie and Rock, and then we moved into other things. And that's kind of how I do it. I try to just kind of smoothly go into each storyline, I guess. But it can be hard. Some people they can't do that. They can't justify, you know, they can't go in all those different directions, or they want to go in all those different directions, and so it makes it a little harder. But thank you.
I understand that. I understand that. One of the interesting things as we come to a close that I find is that you and Woodlawn, oh my goodness, I go on her page, May, the character May.
Yes. Town of Wood Hollow. Yep.
Wood Hollow. Thank you. Okay, Wood Hollow. You guys, Town of Wood Hollow. You guys will often have your stories merge, and that's even how Benjamin will go into your storyline, which is always interesting to me, because there's been times where there's been like phone calls, and I've also noticed like Life in Dahlem, you guys will have like phone calls as well, which I really do like. How do you guys do that, and how does how does that work as far as the dynamics of you guys merging the 2 accounts together?
Like, are you talking about like if we're on the same page, like storyline wise?
Like the same storyline, as far as like when, let me give an example. Like I know that there was one with Life in Dahlem, and you guys had the phone call, and I really thought that was awesome. I mean, I think the whole idea of it is very awesome, but there was the phone call, and so Life in Dahlem had part of the conversation, and then on your page was the other part of the conversation. Did you guys already plan that out as far as like script wise, what was going to be said?
we planned it. I told her I thought it would be really neat, and she was on board with it. She loved it. So we planned it, and I said, if you want, I'll start, and then you can follow suit. And we didn't have a script. I said, let's make it like a real conversation. Let's, like if we were really physically on the phone together, like let's make it like a real conversation, and we'll just go from there. And that's how it flowed, and it really went really well. She did one the other day where she had her character, Margot had called Charlie and left a voicemail. It's kind of hard, like sometimes some people's character, like May and I, we work together on things, but she might be months and months in advance, and it might be springtime in Wood Hollow, and it might be Christmas where I'm at, so it's kind of hard. Like we have to be on the same page if we're going to do something like that. But like I'm still, unfortunately, I'm like right after Christmas because I was so behind. So I'm just getting there, and I want to move on so that I can move on, because there's so much that's getting ready to happen, and it's getting to be spring, and I want a lot of things to happen. So
Yes.
I have to move. But I like when I'm on, a lot of people ask me, do you go like with the whole 12 months, like normal? And I mean, yes and no, depends. I mean, sometimes I do skip a little bit, but I don't skip like a couple years in advance or like 5 months in advance. I don't do that. I have too much to say. I just can't skip. I have too much to put out, and I just cannot skip ahead that much. Some people can do it, and I give them super kudos because they can really just whip it out like that. And I love it. I love that they can do that. Me, I have so much to say, and I can't.
I understand. Mine is in February still. Mine is in the month of February. So we've come up, but I fully understand where you're at. Like, I would love to not have the same outfit go on right now. I'm like, gosh, I'll be so glad not to have to post the same outfit. I'm ready to change them up. But yeah, but in the same hand.
Yeah. She's like, what, is Drew never going to get out of the hospital? And I'm like, eventually.
But you want to give the full storyline. You don't want to just have Jewel she's at home and it's like, okay, well, how did the hospital stay go? What's going on between her and what's his name again? I cannot think of it. Revis? Lucas, that's right. Because he's like Star Wars. Lucas. Yes. And that's how I try to remember it. Yes. So like, what's going on between the two of them? So if you just have her go home and then she's with her parents, and we never really do get a full detail of what is that all about. So I fully understand about wanting to get the full storyline out, especially now since we're trying to find out who even hit her car, it's Shelby's car, but who hit the car. So some things do have to take, you have to do it step by step, but in the same hand for us as the writers and photographers, it's kind of like, I'm ready to move it along, but I don't want to not tell the full story and neglect my character. So I fully understand where you're at with that. I do. I do believe I know one other question that was on there is, are you concerned? I cannot seem to pull it up, but it was a question about, like, are you concerned about any of the soap operas taking your storyline?
Oh my gosh, if they ever picked up one of my storylines, I'd love it. I'd be honored.
Making sure they give you credit and a contract. Credit and a contract, yes.
I would be so honored. That would be like amazing. It's the same thing. I mean, if, I don't know, if my dream would be like, obviously, if my book turned into, like, if my story turned into a movie, or if I got to write a book and it got published and it was famous, yeah, that would be fantastic. That would be a dream. But that's okay if it doesn't. I'm happy doing what I'm doing, sitting in my little corner in my room in my corner of the world that I love. I'm just doing this because I love it. I do. I love it.
Well, I do agree that your story could easily, and I agree with Ken Legacy Dolls. Yes, but they need to pay you for it. Yes, because I do agree that your storylines could easily be adapted into a soap opera. One of the things that I gave as like a suggestion when writing with multiple players or characters is being able to do it like a soap opera, like with the Young and the Restless. Was that Young and the Restless? I think it was Young and the Restless. Or I can't remember. I usually always say, I think it's Young and the Restless with
Yeah.
yeah, with Jack, and then you have Nick and Nikki and their son Nick and Vicky. So just being able to have them as your core, but
Yes.
you know, I could easily see what you have being adapted into a story, and you know, your storyline being adapted into a soap opera. But yes, making sure that you get the credit and get paid for it, because what you have is definitely a gem, and we're just happy to be able to read it and being able to visually see what the interactions are that go on in Ash Harbor. And like I said, you have not checked out her page, please go there, follow, go to her Etsy shop, which is Mandy Couture. I'm missing a name.
Mandy's Doll.
Mandy
Yeah,
Doll
Mandy's
Couture.
Doll.
Mandy Dolls
Yep.
Couture. So go to her page. She also has her Etsy shop. And then you can always DM her if you have any special requests as well, because I believe you also do custom orders, like with colors and so forth.
Yep.
So definitely, and like I said, I'll be putting in my order very, very soon, because I need a hat for Tony. And I put that hat on my Lulu character, and I was like, oh, Lulu looks cute with it. So I'm going to need about 4 of them. So I will be making my order. Yeah, I will make my order very, very soon, honestly. And I love the fact of being, if you go on Life and Doldom's page, you'll also see so many of the different crochets that Mandy has done for like Ruby, the baby.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you're wanting to see any of the work actually be in action, go on Life and Doldom's page, because she always gives credit to Mandy for all of the wonderful creations that she makes. So that'll give you a chance to see it on the actual doll as well. And of course, you know, you always have examples of what the babies and stuff look like wearing it, and the different shawls. But if you want to see it on someone's page, go ahead and look there. So I thank you for being with me today. If you have any questions or anything, please DM us. There was a lot of nuggets, but when the key thing is, keep a journal with you at all times, even while you sleep, so that any of the voices of the characters who are speaking to you, or if you see a certain way of doing your diorama, you can write it down right then.
Absolutely.
And you'll have it in one secure spot.
Absolutely.
So I thank you. Tell your family thank you so much for allowing me to be able to have this valuable time with you. Because I know I did take up the time, but I thank you so much for allowing me to do that. And someone said they love your work.
Oh, thank
you have a lot of people say how much they love your work. Yes. So, and they said great advice. So I don't really know what I'm going to do yet because like I said, I do write notes. I write the notes for myself. But I would love to get with all of you amazing ladies and sisters who I've spoken to, and somehow we can end up figuring out how to be able to compile these nuggets of advice for people. That's that's just like a whole nother thing to do. So I'll be getting with you guys soon about that as well, because you guys have such amazing advice as far as how to be able to write storylines. And the Great Plastic Adventure said, learned a lot always, take notes and go back to your lives to realize. Thanks so very much.
Oh, thank you so much. I enjoyed everybody commenting, and yeah, I that's one of the things I love getting on with the lives too, because I love interacting with everybody. So.
Yes.
And I try to do those often. So, especially when I get stuff, I like to do lives. So I'm always available. I love to, interact with people. And so if anybody's got questions, I mean, I'll answer them as best as I can.
Good, good, good. Well, I thank you. You have a very good night. Happy Friday to you.
To you too.
You have a good weekend, okay? I'm so glad to be able to talk to you.
I'm so glad to talk to you too. Thank
You
you.
too. I'll talk to you later. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.